I would like to talk about the music influence in the 1960s movement, how the music influenced in the society during these days, how it affected the war in Vietnam, the civil rights movement, and even the movements, how it was affected by the music and also influenced. Well, my thesis is stories can make music and music can make history. The 1960s were a crucial point in the US history, with changes such as the war in Vietnam, the fight for the civil rights, and the hippies. All four of this situation and people mixed to have as a result a revolutionary era in history, but what complemented this era was the music. The music influenced the whole generation to understand what the world was going through, to open their eyes and fight for what was best for them, and to believe that there was a solution to all problems that were happening at the time. Music became part of the US daily life, mostly in the young people, particularly in a social group called the hippies. The hippies had different ideals and ways about the ways of life compared to an average American citizen. One of the beliefs that they had was against the war in Vietnam and the capitalism. The way the social group used to show these anti-war beliefs was through riots and public manifestations by going out to the streets and do public demonstration. The hippies also had an influence that was helping them in a very single activity, in every single activity, and it was the music. The music was a great influence on the hippies, with musicians such the size of Jimi Hendrix, or bands such as the Beatles, or even the music groups such as the Motown, or other musicians such as like John Lennon. Were I mean these bands and these musicians were also part of the 60s movement, using their music and lyrics and their beliefs in protest songs that were mostly against the government and the average daily life. That was pretty much all the ideals expressed by the music against the war in Vietnam. Mostly was believing in peace, not in war. Also, the music influence and the soldiers inside the war zone. Most of the soldiers that were already in Vietnam had music in their head that kept them on going, that kept them working, that kept them believing that there was a future for them, even though they saw a lot of dead people every single time and a lot of people dying, thousands of people. The music kept them believing that they can still do more, and they still believe in the American society that were listening to that music and doing something to help them. The people moved by the music and their reaction. Well, the war and the music when they got together, pretty much the influence that the music made on the American society and in the 1960s was that well the music most of it, like I said before, it was mostly to the peace and stay out of the war. Now this influence on American society keep on hitting the government mostly. They didn't want the government to take up all over all the young people that were at that time, because they were mostly sending all of them to war, and that was the same young people that stay here in the U.S. who didn't decide to go to the war, who started doing the riots and the public manifestations to stop that war and let their generation live, because otherwise they will go to war and most likely they will die. Also, another part of this, well, in the 1960s and the music influence, a big part of it is the fight for the civil rights. Also, was happening during this period of time together with the war in Vietnam. Now, the music industry was also taking part of the civil rights movements. I'm sorry. Most of the one big group that we can talk about the Motown. Motown, well, most of the musicians and people working there were like in favor of the Afro American people to fight for the rights to have the same rights that the white people had at that time. Also, through the musicians through Motown used to do their movements, their influence to the people. Even if the people were not Afro Americans, they were still working them with another type of influence in their music to get to make them part of the movement, so they can be part of the civil rights movement also. Yeah, musicians and bands ideals toward the civil rights. Well, pretty much it was I mean, besides the Motown or bands like the Doors, well, Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix also a big part of the on the civil rights movement, and also affected while bringing a lot of people to concerts, talking to them about the civil rights movement, what it was about, and pretty much how it was some kind of freedom for the African American people to give them the same rights as the white people, to give them, I mean, to treat them as a person and not as like they were treated before, like in a very badly way. All the people influenced by the music and civil rights ideals, well, they pretty much work together with the musicians, the music industry that was working the civil rights. They want work with them. They work with them with the music industry, the big companies that were in favor of that, so they can show to the government that also, I mean, another thing that the 1960s youth people were looking forward I mean, to get is the civil rights for the African Americans, like I said before. And those, I mean, those people, they were make big masses of people that will also manifest and go to the Washington D.C. to the White House and let the government know what they wanted. They want one of those things for the civil rights. Well, actually, one of the biggest groups that was always helping pretty much on all the movements in the 1960s, we can talk about the hippie movement. The hippies, well, well, most of the hippies were a group of young people, mostly that were in the normal American citizen. Well, most of them that were homeless. Most of them lived for their ideals instead of living for material things that society says is what you're supposed to looking for. Well, also this groups, uh, they were I mean this hippie group was also inspired by the music. A lot of bands like the Doors, like the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, a lot of Eric Clapton. All of them were a lot of this group were inspired by those bands, by those musicians to start. I mean, they're doing their own revolution and to be out of what the society tell them to do. Because I mean, they took the influence from the music to start something new and start a new revolution that will make the Jew people a better generation and not just stay together, you know, not just to stick under the government and what they say was best for them, because sometimes what they believe it was not the best for the country at that time. Also, a lot of the music bands were joining the hippie groups. Well, we can see people like John Lennon and Joko. Well, they were joining the hippie groups. They even had the hippie look, the long hair, the kind of clothing they had, even if not taking a shower, part of it as well. I mean, they felt too connected to those groups that they decided to become part of them, so that way they can understand those groups and make their music, so that those groups can connect to the music, and that way make kind of like a big family to stay together and fight against what they believe wasn't right for the country. Also, the hippie music, well, even a lot of people that wasn't really, I mean, can't be really defined as part of the hippie group. I mean, average regular citizens, we can say, were also influenced by these hippie bands. And the whole American society was influenced by the hippie music. So even though they didn't have the lyrics or they didn't have a lot of the ideals, some of the people are regular citizens. They could believe like on the civil rights movement. They can believe in the anti-war movement. They can also believe in the hippie movement. Not not having to be a hippie on 100%, that they can still live with their parents and have like regular way of looking up, but they will still or had the hippie believings and working them. Well, no, most of this, just to make a conclusion, well, we can see how the music a lot of times is just treated as some sort of entertainment for our generation. Well, back then in the 1960s, it was way more than that. Actually, the music will make a big influence to make you believe in something else, to make you change your mind, to see your ideals if you're in the right way or the wrong way. You actually had a lot to do with the music, where to go, what to do. The music will tell you actually what you believe. You will hear the music, and then if the music that you listen to and you like, there was a group that liked the same kind of music you do, and it wasn't only the music but the ideals that music had, that you will join that group and be part of that. Like I said, it could be as a civil rights movement or a hippie movement or just I mean, the anti-war in Vietnam, or just a regular citizen but with more influence and more ideals that will work uh, towards something that's different than what the government was trying to get to their young people at the time. So, believe in music. In the 1960s, they did something about it. There's always something we can do about it if we take the right influence from it. Thank you.